Dragon Ball Z really kickstarted the craze of super transformations in anime. From the very first arc of Dragon Ball, Goku amazed audiences by going from this small little tiny little boy who didn't know what anything in modern society was.
It's your balls, Bulma! They're gone!
What about the wedding?
I'll be back. I'll try some of that next time.
Goku! Wedding is not a food!
An obvious pastiche of the Monkey King from Journey to the West into this colossal great ape, capable of crushing buildings underfoot, and grandfather parental figures as well, accidentally. Whether or not Akira Toriyama realized it or not, this was the first step to something greater, a gigantic leap forward in action shonen anime, one that would define the genre for decades to come. It inspired every single manga artist and writer to grace the pages of Shonen Jump, and whether they stayed for a few months or several years, it became a trademark of shonen action. But, of course, the Great Ape is dwarfed by the legacy of a later transformation in Dragon Ball. Goku's initial Super Saiyan transformation, the build-up, the moment of pure catharsis, as well as the eruption of power therein, proved to be one of the defining moments of Dragon Ball, reaching a pinnacle that Toriyama arguably never really topped. It's clear that Toriyama didn't really plan on continuing Dragon Ball past the Frieza arc, though he did. And he had to top the Super Saiyan moment, again, and again, and again. By the time Akira Toriyama made Super Saiyan 3, it was clear that the Super Saiyan transformation kind of lost its novelty. It was no longer this super unique explosive thing. It became kind of a standard form, honestly. Like, how do you top the Super Saiyan transformation? Well, you make the hair longer, and you add shockwaves or whatever. And how do you top that? Well, you make the hair even longer, and you get rid of eyebrows, apparently, because I guess the eyebrows were power limiters the same way Piccolo's neck scarf and shoulder pads were, what have you. Dragon Ball GT was put into a really unfortunate position because of that. You had these arcs and arcs and arcs of giant transformations. How do you continue that? It turns out you go with something very different. But before we dive too far into the topic, let me tell you about today's sponsor, FlexiSpot. Most of my work is spent in my office, working on video scripts or doing some really heavy-duty research. So I know firsthand you need a really good chair when you're working. That's where the C7 chair comes in. It has great ergonomic and back support that really makes it comfortable to sit for longer periods of time. But now, FlexiSpot is offering the C7 Max, a premium line chair designed for maximum comfort and support. The C7 Max's backrest locks in place, offering a latex padded seat and adaptive lumbar support. The adaptive lumbar support conforms to your spine and is entirely adjustable. But let's say you want to take it easy, or maybe relax. Well, you can adjust the chair for relaxation mode. With its 4-level lockable backrest and maximum recline of 135 degrees, along with its pull-out footrest and rotating 5D armrests, you can sit in any position you want and still be comfortable. That part is especially good for me because, listen, I can't sit straight to save my life. Like, seriously. A footrest? How many office chairs have a footrest? That's pretty cool, not gonna lie. My only concern is my spouse, who might steal the chair from me. But you know what? That's okay too. If you're looking to steal the chair from your partner or family, don't worry. The C7 Max has 5 levels of backrest height adjustment, adjustable seat depth, and tons of other customizable options. So anyone in the household can adjust that chair to fit their needs. Or you can adjust it back when your spouse steals it. I'm just saying. I mean, there's a foot difference between me and my spouse. It's a bit hard to adjust. FlexiSpot is also offering the WPS01 walking treadmill, the walking pad. Perfect for use when you need to add a few extra steps in during the workday. It's perfect for walking or running, and you can easily fit this in your office or elsewhere in your home. Maybe while watching Dragon Ball Z, so you feel like you're getting a workout while watching them fight. FlexiSpot offers a 30-day return policy and a 5-year warranty, which means if you don't like it, you can send it back. With Black Friday coming up, you can use my code 24BFC7 on flexispot.com to save $50 on the C7 Max chair. You also have the opportunity to win a free order from their activity calendar. Treat yourself with the gift of a comfortable workstation this Black Friday. Or buy it as a gift for that friend of yours who won't shut up about how much their back hurts. Like me, basically. That's code 24BFC7 at checkout. And now, back to the video. Super Saiyan 4 is one of the most unique transformations that any Saiyan has undergone throughout Dragon Ball, even in the modern day. One that harkens back to the Great Ape transformation that started it all. And for a while, that was it. Super Saiyan 4 was peak power. But in the modern era, Dragon Ball is back. And with its return comes new forms, from Super Saiyan God to Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan, otherwise known as Super Saiyan Blue, to Ultra Instinct, to whatever's going on with Vegeta in the Dragon Ball manga, and Gohan and Dragon Ball superheroes. But with all these new forms, Super Saiyan 4 becomes more of a memory, an oddity. And that's a mistake. Dragon Ball GT is not great. In fact, I'd say it's quite not great. But it has 3 great contributions to Dragon Ball lore, which, interestingly enough, are all the things that they took from Dragon Ball GT and put in Sparkling Zero, so I digress. The focus on the Truffles and Baby as adversaries to the Saiyan heritage, deconstruction of the Dragon Balls through the Shadow Dragons, and Super Saiyan 4. All 3, I argue, bring the Dragon Ball saga full circle. I'm going to analyze all that right now to showcase why Super Saiyan 4 is one of the most important and most underrated nowadays transformations in Dragon Ball. In order to explain why Super Saiyan 4 matters, we need to understand the significance of the prior 3 Super Saiyan forms, as well as kind of why they got less impressive over time. The first Super Saiyan transformation is built up over the course of the Namek and Frieza saga. The Super Saiyan is this legendary warrior, one that inspires fear in the heart of Frieza, the very soul who destroyed planet Vegeta and eradicated the Saiyans. Most aliens regard Saiyans as kind of low-level grunts, with one power-up they can use to clear planets, that being the Great Ape, but they lose control of their abilities. And yes, a horde of them can lay waste to a planet, but compared to Frieza, who can just destroy a planet by, poking at it, not exactly great in the hierarchy of combat. The Saiyan's tail, which is necessary for their transformation into the Great Ape, is also a great point of vulnerability. Raditz, for example, gets grabbed by that thing by Goku and it renders him completely paralyzed. You have to have extreme training to avoid leaving your tail as this great point of weakness. And while we do see Raditz slap Goku across Kami House with his tail, it's still a point of weakness. It's not really a great strength. It's a vulnerable element and it can be cut off. So you can lose that transformation and then what? What are you going to do? We see Vegeta aspire to become the Super Saiyan in order to beat Frieza, but he ultimately fails. Though he thinks at one point he might have transformed, there's no visible transformation. It's kind of just Vegeta saying he's the Super Saiyan, and you don't really see anything going on. Ironically, it's the low-level grunt that transforms because of his human heart, his human attachment to Krillin. When Frieza kills Krillin, Goku loses control and unlocks his hidden potential as a Super Saiyan. And what a form this is. He has this golden hair, this radiant aura. The might of this form is visible, and it manifests visibly. And while it's not as drastic as any of Frieza's power-ups, or indeed the Great Ape form, it's immediately apparent that this is a form that shouldn't be messed with. And that fight with Frieza on Namek as it blows up, it just looks biblical. It looks like something coming out of a classic hero's epic. But I think also it's very clear that Akira Toriyama kind of planned on this being the end. I don't think he knew how to top it at the time when he first created Super Saiyan. So he kind of went, okay, we gotta continue the story. How do we maintain the high level of stakes that the Frieza saga brought? How do we make it so that the other characters don't fall behind the Super Saiyan? After all, the Super Saiyan is this great massive jump forward. How do the humans who don't have a superhuman form stand up to this? And we've already unlocked Krillin's potential. So what now? How does Piccolo stand up? Does Piccolo have a Super Saiyan transformation? Well, why didn't the Namekians use it against Frieza? What's going on? How do we continue the story? And how do we make villains stronger than Frieza? Well, for the latter, it came down to the androids. An old foe of Goku's, Dr. Gero, again, harkening back to the older parts of Dragon Ball, builds androids designed to defeat Goku, ultimately leading to the creation of Cell, a bio-android who absorbs 17 and 18 in order to become perfect, reaching a new pinnacle of power. And Cell, at his base level, is stronger than the Super Saiyans. So we gotta actually power up to beat him. So how do we do that? The other problem also is that we now have more Super Saiyans. Trunks, the future son of Vegeta, beats Frieza when he comes back as a Super Saiyan. Vegeta becomes a Super Saiyan. Gohan becomes a Super Saiyan. Super Saiyans become the standard. It's no longer special. It's no longer unique to Goku. As for Piccolo, well, he absorbs Kami, using a technique that the Namekians can use, the fusion technique, in order to stand up against 17 and later Cell. But now Piccolo is stronger than a Super Saiyan. So how Super Saiyan becomes less and less useful the longer the arc goes, unless the Super Saiyan transformation isn't fully perfected yet. What if Super Saiyan isn't the peak, but rather the start to reach peak power? This is where something very interesting happens with Dragon Ball. Both Goku and Vegeta separately train to figure out ways to perfect the Super Saiyan transformation. Now, Vegeta and Trunks reach a new powered up state. They increase their body mass, slowing their speed down, but boosting their powers in order to stand up to Cell. And it does work. It does increase the power of the Super Saiyan. However, Goku and Gohan, seeing the drawbacks of this powered up form, decide to make Super Saiyan their base level. By controlling the amount of power the Super Saiyan can emit, they can avoid burning out their energy and gain full mastery over their powers, and thus be able to increase power as a Super Saiyan, to very naturally power up the same way they would in base form. Transformations as a power burden were established in Dragon Ball a while back. When the Kaioken technique is first introduced, Goku can only maintain it for a set period of time before his body burns out on it. And Super Saiyan transformations at this stage do burn a lot of energy. If you run out of it, you go back to base form and you're vulnerable, maybe even weaker than you were when you started fighting. So by making Super Saiyan a base form, they can then elevate the power even further, which allows them to pass a boundary. Gohan, a character who has been shown to have incredible bursts of power when angry or frustrated or upset, snaps in his Super Saiyan form when Cell kills Android 16, and that snapping results in a new transformation, Super Saiyan 2. Now, Super Saiyan 2 is basically less a new form and more a powered up variant of the Super Saiyan transformation. If Super Saiyan is Gohan's base, then this is his elevated state to his base. It's raw power taken to a new level, and thus the transformation shifts. In many ways, it is similar to Vegeta and Trunks' powered up state, but superior. More power, no drawbacks, incredible visual power. Even his hair grows, there's sparks flying, it's clear he's reached a new pinnacle. I do want to point out that Super Saiyan 2 is a term we created in hindsight during the Buu saga. In Shueisha magazines as well as guidebooks at the time, it was not called Super Saiyan 2. Rather, Super Saiyan 2 was called Super Saiyan Grade 5. Yeah, let's explain that. Let me unpack this one for a bit. Super Saiyan Grade 1 was the state Goku achieved at Namek. It's the base Super Saiyan state, your initial introduction to Super Saiyan power. So what's Grade 2? Well, that was the state Vegeta entered when fighting Cell, the Super Vegeta form, where his muscles get big, gets a little slower, not as big a power up as Super Saiyan 2, but still substantial. Super Saiyan Grade 3 was the state Trunks entered, that went beyond his father in terms of power, but was far, far too sluggish to be useful. What's Grade 4? Well, that's when you make Super Saiyan your base form, what Goku and Gohan did during their training during the Cell Saga. And Grade 5? Super Saiyan 2. Now, I don't really like this grading entirely. I think it's kind of implies that there's a linear progress from the Super Vegeta form to making Super Saiyan your base. I don't like that too much. I think it's more interesting when you see them as diverging paths of the same technique. And, you know, again, when you hit Super Saiyan 2, it kind of makes the previous grades kind of pointless. Like, it's not really linear, and you don't have to get through those other stages to reach Super Saiyan 2. Maybe, unless Vegeta trains off screen like that. Regardless, what is clear is that when we get to the Buu saga, everyone can just reach Super Saiyan 2 now. They've done the training, they've maybe made Super Saiyan 1 their base and have elevated beyond that, much like how Gohan does. But Goku goes a step even further and enters into Super Saiyan 3.
And this, what's he doing? Is to go even further beyond.
How Goku reaches Super Saiyan 3 is kind of unknown. In fact, there've only been 2 characters in canon to reach the state, Goku and Gotenks. And Gotenks, it's even more vague how he reached that form, because we have seen basically most of his time on screen. It's kind of strange, isn't it? Super Saiyan 3 lacks the emotional impact that Super Saiyan 1 and Super Saiyan 2 had. And furthermore, it looks kind of ridiculous. No more is it just hair sticking up in sparks. Now it's hair trailing down to your waist and your eyebrows vanish. Like, what is this form? It's cool, but it's ridiculous. And unfortunately, unlike Super Saiyan 1 and Super Saiyan 2, it doesn't really accomplish anything. Super Saiyan 1, that was the base. You know, that's what Goku used to fight Frieza, and that's what Trunks used to beat Frieza. Super Saiyan 2 was the culmination of Gohan's arc. It was the culmination of how he kept getting angry, how he kept struggling with his emotions, how he kept training under his father, and ultimately what he uses to become the hero of the Cell Saga. But Super Saiyan 3 comes out of nowhere. It's trained. Goku trains to get it. Doesn't really matter. It's immediately antiquated by both fusion and Gohan's ultimate form. So what does it accomplish? And whenever Goku transforms into Super Saiyan 3, it burns power quickly, and bizarrely, he doesn't really beat any bad guys as Super Saiyan 3. Outside of the movies, of course. But again, Hirudegarn is not really on level of a threat as Boo or Beerus later on or Baby. It's a strange situation. To make this even more interesting is that Akira Toriyama would later revise what Super Saiyan 2 and 3 even were, and contextualize that transforming into a Super Saiyan 2 and 3 is not really a power-up so much as a sign the Saiyans are losing control of the massive power they're accumulating. Much like the Super Vegeta form, there's a drawback. Akira Toriyama, in this interview following Battle of Gods before Resurrection F, claimed that Super Saiyan 2 and 3 are nothing more than a powered-up variation of the core Super Saiyan transformation, again, harkening back to the grade system we mentioned earlier. They were examples of Goku losing control of his core power. He powered up so much, the power escaped from him. It would expend too much energy, and frankly, he'd revert back to Goku pretty quickly. If one learns how to go beyond Super Saiyan 3, that really means they can harness the power of Super Saiyan 3 exhibits without needing to lose control of it. Thus, Super Saiyan becomes as powerful as Super Saiyan 3 if Goku learns mastery over it, which he does upon achieving the Super Saiyan God form in Super, and him stacking Super Saiyan God with Super Saiyan, that means that he is able to perform true mastery over that transformation. This is also why there's no Super Saiyan Blue 3. He has complete control over his power in the Super Saiyan Blue form. I've been saying Super Saiyan a lot. So we have the Super Saiyan forms, we have the Super Saiyan God forms, both of which are 2 separate transformations that can stack. Plus we have the Kaioken, which, if we want to get extra spicy, is just extra powering up. And then we have Ultra Instinct later on. But what if we compounded the Super Saiyan form with the Great Ape form? Yeah. You kind of forgot about that, didn't you? Because by this point, all Saiyans lost their tails. So now they're turning into great apes. But it is a separate transformation, one that harkens back to the animalistic nature of the Saiyans. Whereas Super Saiyan is more what happens when a human heart becomes enraged or pure in some way. The great ape form is the raw animalistic power of the Saiyan unleashed. It is their true nature, not unaltered, undistilled. Whereas everything else, a Saiyan has to undergo emotional change. Not quite the same thing. And Saiyan society isn't geared towards emotional attachment the same way human society is. So you have to to become a Super Saiyan, leave Saiyan society for a little bit, become ascended in a fashion. Which leads to Dragon Ball GT. Baby is a clone of the Truffles, an alien race that lived on planet Vegeta back when it was called Planet Plant, before the Saiyans laid them to waste. Now, Truffles had appeared in Dragon Ball Z before. They appeared in the Plan to Eradicate the Saiyans, the OVA that everyone kind of forgot about. But Baby brought the Truffles into the front and center of the narrative. Baby is resurrected by a mad doctor, and he enacts revenge. He does this by using his ability to possess people, to overtake every living Saiyan left, other than Goku and Pan. He gets into a big fight, he ends up taking the Black Star Dragon Balls and wishing for the creation of a new planet Vegeta, otherwise known as Planet Plant, and he takes Vegeta's body and goes to the planet.
What the Saiyans have destroyed, we will rebuild.
In many ways, it kind of fulfills this cruel destiny, right? Baby's race was destroyed by the Saiyans, but now Baby has recreated his planet by overtaking the Saiyans, enacting revenge against his nearly extinct foe. Only this time something different happens. So how does the Saiyan become a great ape again? Well, it's because of something called Blutz waves. Blutz waves radiate off of celestial bodies or magical power-ups that apparently a great scientist by the name of Bardock could create if you believe certain dubs.
Your father was an average fighter, Kakarot, but he was a brilliant scientist!
And usually a full moon or this big orb you can manifest in certain situations can create enough Blutz waves to turn a Saiyan into a great ape. However, because the new planet Plant is in orbit around the Earth, the Saiyans on planet Plant, which include Vegeta, baby Vegeta, and Kid Goku, take a full gander at the full Earth, which creates so many Blutz waves, it bombards both parties. It transforms them not only into great apes, but into golden great apes. In other words, a great ape beyond a great ape, a Super Saiyan great ape. And what's interesting about this is it takes everything back to the origins of the Saiyans, their primal form. Not just legendary, but crude. A technique that was used and tossed aside because of how crude and uncontrollable in many ways it was. There were drawbacks, there were weaknesses, but now it is in its full power. But interesting enough, we actually see the golden great ape much earlier in Dragon Ball Z. In the filler arc, when Vegeta is recounting the story of the legendary Super Saiyan, we do see a golden great ape appear. Now, this is corroborated in the non-canon Dragon Ball GT Perfect File volumes published by Shueisha in the 90s. So, in this canon of GT, no, Broly isn't the legendary Super Saiyan. The Golden Great Ape is the legendary Super Saiyan. Of course, this begs the question, why didn't Saiyans transform into the Golden Great Ape all the time? After all, they were probably binary planet systems they ruined. Why couldn't they transform earlier? Well, the Funimation dub actually has kind of a solution to that, which I kind of like, even though I think it is non-canon, that in order to become a Golden Great Ape, you have to achieve a degree of mastery over the Super Saiyan state. In other words, basically Super Saiyan 3. So it makes the Super Saiyan a stepping stone to this form, though not a direct linear path. Though that begs the question how Vegeta could become a Golden Great Ape if it never become Super Saiyan 3 in canon, but maybe he did off screen. Who knows? Who knows? Now, because Baby has the power to control any body he invades, he has no trouble dominating the Golden Great Ape form. But he's not the Saiyan. Goku's a Saiyan. And when he becomes a Great Ape, because, again, turned into a kid, grew back his tail, he struggles to maintain control over the Golden Great Ape form. But it's only thanks to Pan that he's able to regain mastery, and something happens. Super Saiyan 4 is a form unlike the previous Super Saiyans. It's not a powered-up variant of the golden hair form we saw before. It's not a bigger, burlier form. It doesn't grow extra hair down to his feet now. Rather, fur covers the body, but not the chest. Black hair, not golden hair, extends down over the shoulders and back. The tail, once a sign of weakness for a Saiyan, becomes a source of power, extended and long and mighty looking. His aura is not golden, but a scarlet. If the Golden Great Ape is the legendary Super Saiyan of myth, then this is that beyond it. This is mastery of that form. Much the same way that mastery over the Saiyan becomes, grade 4 Super Saiyan. This is Goku controlling his power. And because he's in control, he has greater mastery over how it's utilized. It's uncertain whether or not Super Saiyan 4 is more powerful than the Great Ape form. But what is undeniable is that the Super Saiyan 4 exercises more control over this great power. By this logic, Super Saiyan 4 is not the fourth stage of Super Saiyan. It's not a powered-up variant of the Super Saiyan form where you lose control of your power. Quite the opposite. It is a sign of complete mastery of power, much the way that Super Saiyan Blue is a form of complete mastery. It is much like the Super Saiyan God form, a non-linear, secondary, branching form that requires training, that requires the harnessing of power, yes, but it's not the next step. If the Super Saiyan state is achieved through heightened emotion, and the Super Saiyan God is achieved through Saiyan unity, all Saiyans powering up and powering into a singular Saiyan, then Super Saiyan 4 represents something completely different. It's mastery over the Saiyan's savage nature. It's very Buddhist in a way. You know, you let go of the things that make you angry, that cause you pain. You let go of the rage and animalistic parts of you and accept serenity in the power. You accept. It is thanks to Goku's human heart. Again, he is able to master the beast. Now, and physically, like I said, it's very unique. The tail is no longer a sign of weakness, it's a sign of domination. It's a sign of power. Grabbing the tail and squeezing it causes no more pain than grabbing a human leg. And the radiant aura, again, is more akin to the Super Saiyan God form than the Super Saiyan form. I think that's really interesting. And very interestingly too, while Super Saiyan 3 could barely be maintained for more than a few minutes before burning through energy, Super Saiyan 4 does not. And yes, Gogeta as a fusion, maintaining Super Saiyan 4 state, that does burn through the fusion a little bit, but so it's not like a complete you can do this forever kind of thing, although I'm sure with mastery you can. It's not as much as a burden to the body as Super Saiyan 3 is, because it's a form of mastery. It's a form of control rather than pushing yourself harder and harder and harder. There's also an added element to all this. The form seems to break the limitations of even Shenron's magic. After all, Goku is magically turned into a kid by the Black Star Dragon Balls in GT, but when he gets to be Super Saiyan 4, he reverts back to being an adult. Regardless of what's going on, his clothing melts away and he's an adult again. So it seems to break even the laws of the most powerful things in Dragon Ball, that being Shenron's magic. And yes, as we see in Super Dragon Ball Heroes, you can stack Super Saiyan 4 with the Kaioken, thus pushing your power even further beyond. As mentioned before, the Funimation dub added the extra layer for Super Saiyan 4, that if you can master Super Saiyan 3, you can become a Golden Ape and thus Super Saiyan 4. Again, that's not really a thing that is ever mentioned in the original stories. It's not in any source books, but it does allow GT, at least in the dub, to sidestep the plot hole of why didn't Vegeta just amp up the Blutz waves back in the Frieza arc to beat Frieza? You know, why did we never encounter this before by accident? It establishes there are steps along the way to reach this goal, but it's not a linear path. It's not the final step. That by pushing the Super Saiyan state to its maximum, you can push the Great Ape form beyond its limits. It's kind of cool, I think. It manages to validate both all the steps you've taken thus far without rendering them useless. It's not like, oh, what was the point of this? No, it all led to this. Unlike Super Saiyan God, where you could have reached that form at any time if you just got a bunch of Saiyans together and channeled in, it becomes this real sense of they had to work to get here. This is the culmination of Goku's training. I mean, keep in mind this. Goku, logically, could have become a Super Saiyan God back during the Broly movies. Granted, it was non-canon, but you got all these Saiyans powering into Goku during that movie. You got Gohan, Trunks, and Vegeta, not enough to be a god, and you have Piccolo's energy, which is, again, not a Saiyan energy, but the concept still is present there, and it's a great power-up that Goku uses to beat Broly. Now, that is different than what happens with Super Saiyan 4. It's not other people giving Goku a gift. It's Goku coming to terms with himself and accepting himself and growing. Also, it looks distinct. Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan Blue, it's variations of the transformation we've seen before. Ultra Instinct, same thing. But Super Saiyan 4 looks drastic. It looks like a true, completely new transformation. In a lot of ways, it reminds me a bit of how in Sailor Moon, you have the Eternal Sailor Moon form, which is just such a goofy, over-the-top transformation with the wings and the fluttering and all that. It's superfluous, but it demonstrates power. It showcases strength in a way that other forms might not. Though comparing Super Saiyan Blue to Super Saiyan 4 reveals something. Both forms are peak, and are thus pitted against each other in games or Super Dragon Ball Heroes. It demonstrates complete mastery of the power brought up to this point. Again, a culmination of all that came within Z. Unlike Super Saiyan God, however, Super Saiyan 4 isn't something that can be given. It's something that has to be earned. To reach it, they must overcome their evil nature through great effort.
What is better, to be born good or to overcome your evil nature through great effort.
And they need to earn it not by getting angry or aggressive, but by calming down. It's the inverse of how Gohan reaches Super Saiyan 2. And it's not a form that Goku just pulls right out of his ass, like in Dragon Ball Z with Super Saiyan 3. It's enhanced by the plot, and it ties it back to the beginning, especially when we get to Gogeta and Omega Shenron fighting. Omega Shenron again represents the core of everything. It brings it right back to the start. Much like how Super Saiyan 4 brought it back to the start with Great Apes, Omega Shenron brings it right back to the start with the Dragon Balls. It shows that the final enemy isn't so much, some greater threat, it's our dependency on something else to solve our problems. And thus, when Super Saiyan 4, the mastery of the animalistic nature that destroyed Grandpa Gohan, and Omega Shenron, the manifestation of the goal that started his journey in the first place, it feels almost like a full circle is being made. That we're getting back to the themes that started Dragon Ball in a way that's thematically resonant, but also builds on what came before. Dragon Ball GT was all about going back to the beginning. That's why Goku's like a kid. They wanted to go back to the Dragon Ball of old, but they did it very forcibly at first. They kind of dragged Dragon Ball back. Whereas Super Saiyan 4, Baby, and Omega Shenron organically weave the story back by tying the future story into past threads. This is also why the Super 17 arc doesn't work. It's too forceful. It's too obvious. You're dragging all these guys back from hell to fight Goku one last time, and Goku just beats them in 5 seconds. It's kind of lame. What isn't lame is the thematic through line. That is potent, that is powerful, that is meaningful. And when it ends, when Dragon Ball GT ends, the Dragon Balls and Goku ascend to a higher plane of existence. They've been pushed, they've been forced to reconcile with their darker sides, and now are at a place of ascension, a place of serenity. This is the consequences of everything that's come before, and the world has changed forever for it, and maybe for the worst. But at the same time, there's a sense of maturity now. There's a sense of growing up. The Saiyans have gone through a coming-of-age arc, really, collectively. Whereas before they depended on the Dragon Balls to solve all their problems, and before they relied on rage to push themselves even harder, they now achieve mastery, not through anger, but through self-acceptance and calmness. And that is something really profound, I think. Super Saiyan 4 is incredible, not because it looks cool, though it does, not because it's powerful, though it is, but because it represents true maturity for the Saiyans. And that comes not from being angry, not depending on someone else, but through self-reflection, self-acceptance, and self-control. There's a reason why Super Saiyan 4 Goku sounds so gruff and calm in the form, and why that calmness is, in many ways, more intimidating than a scream to the heavens.
So, how do you like the new look? I call this Super Saiyan 4. Care for a demonstration? I knew about Goku Black, but I guess there are others that look like me too. Here goes. Take this. No use! No holding back. Times 10. Kamehameha! Take this. Here goes. No use! Thanks a lot. If it weren't for you, I would never have remembered what was truly important.